Hey, welcome back to Business 101, Introduction to Business. This is now our 7th and last video in this module on finance. And so, appropriately, I thought I would entitle this video, Putting It All Together. So, as we consider all of these different topics that have sewn together in our understanding of finance, the last thing we want to touch upon as a way for a company to secure the capital it needs for growth, for projects, for acquisitions, all those kinds of things, is selling stock, also known as the initial public offering. And so what happens in initial public offering is the company decides to offer for sale a portion of ownership in the company, to turn it into a public corporation, to have shares available for sale to the public for any public investor who wants to purchase it. And that's the way, through that sale, by selling off a portion of the ownership in the corporation, also known as equity, that equity will be sold for a large amount of capital that will be required for all these sorts of projects that they have in mind. So you see there in the second bullet point that we call that portion of ownership that gets sold the equity that is then divided into shares of that ownership interest. And so you may take, for instance, a 40% controlling stake in the company and divide that up across 100,000 shares and offer all those shares perhaps for sale to the general public. You might, of course, only decide in an initial public offering to sell a portion, a part of the shares that you have divided that equity up into. Nevertheless, what ends up happening is an underwriting investment bank or set of banks, might be several banks, will then together set an offer price for the initial offering, a price per share of stock. On a particular date, which of course is well publicized in the financial press, then those shares are made available in a first-time initial public offering for sale, and any interested investor, whether that's an individual or an institutional investor or a company or a fund, can then purchase some of the available block of shares which are made available for sale, and those purchase fees, the money, less the fees paid to the underwriting banks, which by the way is pretty darn substantial, but whatever's left over goes to the company to be raised for capital, for projects, investments, etc. And this, of course, can be, for a wise IPO, it can be a sum that is several $1 million, sometimes even tens or hundreds of $1 million secured by an initial public offering. That is then the most famous or notorious way that a company turns itself into a public corporation by selling shares in an IPO. It's a very, very big deal. And it is a way for a company to raise perhaps the largest amount of working capital of any of the means, the different vehicles, and different types of ways that a company can try to secure capital. The IPO is typically the biggest one. It's the big shot to get millions upon millions of dollars of capital for available use. Now remember, this falls into a spectrum. It's one element in the spectrum of ways that companies secure the capital they need. There are loans. We talked about that in the last video, right? Loans either secured by collateral or unsecured. There are venture sources of funding like angel investors and venture capital funds. There is the selling of debt like corporate bonds, which essentially is a loan. It's a debt, right? It's an IOU. And then finally, what we briefly touched upon in this video, there is the initial public offering of stock that is sold, ownership shares in the company that typically brings in the most amount of capital. Putting this all together then, we want to reiterate, what is finance about? Finance is about getting capital for business, because business is all about executing risky activities that yield a return. Business needs capital in order to do that, and finance provides the capital that business requires. Finance rests upon the principle of the great power of money and time, that money never sleeps, it is always working for or against you, and compound interest, builds money over time. And therefore, finance attempts to make money and time work on behalf of the organization rather than against the organization, and that's through the measured embrace of risk versus return in order to capitalize the business and also make money work the hardest that we possibly can for the sake of the business's capital expenditures. This then is our module on finance. We hope that this has been really enlightening for you to be able to understand not only the difference between finance and accounting, but also the importance of finance to business as well as to the rest of the financial system. Because it is only through finance and capital investment that really extraordinary returns can be made by investors investing in companies rather than simply in, for instance, government-backed T-bills and those kinds of things. It is a way for investors to have more options and choices how they want to try to earn a return on their investment capital. That's really important to the financial health, well, of an entire nation as well as an entire economic system. And while it is not perfect and it does have problems, still, the finance system is a crucial part of the health of our economy, as well as the health of a free market system and the way that companies going about making a profit and doing great things in the world around us. And for that, I'm very, very thankful for finance, and I hope that this series of lectures has been helpful for you to understand possibly where your role in your career might land, and if not in finance, how finance fits into the bigger picture of how business works. Thanks so much for your attention in this series on finance, as well as your attention throughout this entire class. I want to thank you for taking this class, Business 101, Introduction to Business, with me. It's been my pleasure to be your instructor throughout this semester. I hope this helps you, and we will hopefully see you in another class very, very soon. Best of luck to you throughout your career and your education. Take care.